is the North End. This is the North End.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the North End. This is Dave, and this is 5 things I learned during Manchester United's away defeat to Manchester City in the derby, 3-1 City. Fairly inevitable, but we'll get into that. Coming in at number 1, good start, decent start. I thought one of my biggest issues with United, regardless in who they're playing, right, is just the way they defend. They don't seem to kind of have a strategy and a plan. It was very clear today that they went out there with a plan, knowing that they were not going to have to, knowing that they were not going to have the ball, and they had to be very compact. I thought they were really compact and doing about just as well as they could do for the majority of the first half. I think minus the Haaland chance where he puts it over the bar. I mean, that's a 0.9 XG, meaning he's got a better chance of scoring that than a penalty. It's just a terrible miss. And he was left alone for that. But outside of that, I thought, United were defending to the best of their abilities. I thought Varane had a great game. But all in all, like, you just haven't seen that from United. So that was a positive. Like, you're compact, you're defending well against, in my opinion, the best team in the world. Don't want to get too controversial, the best team the Premier League's ever seen. So I thought that was a positive, right? And then on top of that, we have the one break. We'll get to some of the other attacking prowess or moments that we did have or didn't have in a moment, but the shot/goal from Rashford is just world class. So great start. If you would have told me United were going to be up 1-0 at halftime, I definitely would have said this is going to be on a counterattack goal, and it was. And it was great. So really good. That's a good positive. Coming in at number 2, attack. What attack? Outside of that, it's just a worldie of a shot from Rashford. It's bar down. It's going to be one of the better goals of his career. It's phenomenal. There's a couple of other moments. There was a moment earlier before that goal, where if Garnacho, he's up the right wing, if Garnacho slides that over, just looks up, slides it over, there's a tap in for Rashford. I don't think he would have been offside, but Garnacho was the worst player on the pitch today. And we'll get to that a little bit later. And then there was the other moment where Marcus heads it down, and just outside of the goal, the attacking prowess and attacking ability, whenever we did get the ball, which wasn't often. I mean, let's be fair. We a lot of teams don't get the ball, but we didn't really get the ball. But when we did get it in any type of attacking scenario, it's just like nowhere near good enough. And when you go in that low block and you transition, you've got players like Rashford, you've got Garnacho, Bruno, again, we'll get to him. I keep saying we're going to get to it, and we will. And we had counter moments that I think we should have done more with. Like, if we get that 2-0 goal, maybe City likely still come back and win, but changes the dynamic of the game, right? So that just the attack is... It's painful because it's poor. It's not even like, oh, it's not clicking. It's poor. It's not good. And I feel like it's kind of been that way all season. You see little moments. You're like, oh, man, maybe, No, and it was really, really bad today. And it was disappointing because you're not going to get a lot of chances against City. And you got to take them. And outside of just the worldie of a goal, we didn't. And that was... again, it wasn't surprising, but it was disappointing. Coming in at number 3, this is just like water is wet, right? Like, the gulf in quality between these two teams. You can talk about injuries, sure, and that's fine. I'm just kind of sick of hearing it. And sure, that wasn't our best 11, what have you. The gulf in the quality of the way the two teams play and the expectations that the City manager and the City players have of one another, this is the thing that people aren't talking about. So you can go on YouTube and you can watch Sky Sports. You can watch everything. No one talks about this one thing. The expectations that the players and the manager have for each other. You don't see any of that at United. United players are constantly out of position. They're not scanning. They're not reading. They lose the ball. What are you going to do? We lose the ball. We always lose the ball. City lose the ball. They fight and claw to get it back. And their positional movement on and off the ball, it's the closest thing that you'll get to art on a football pitch. And it's Pep Guardiola. It's just, he has principles and demands, and the players know that. And they know if they're not meeting it, they won't play. And it just, whether you love them or hate them, they are exquisite in the way they play. And you knew today, like at halftime, you're like, oh man, United got through that, right? But anyone who watches a little bit of football and watches the Premier League closely and follows the Premier League knew that second half, it was just going to be, how long can United hold on? Like, you knew it. You could feel it. Whether you were a United fan, a City fan, a neutral, you were like, it's coming. And it did. And I mean, you see the goal, the first goal from Foden, outrageous. Lindelof, do you have to get close to him? Yep. The other players have to push out? Yep. But it's phenomenal. And then the 1-2, and then the second goal. And Foden was just fantastic today. But we let them. We talk about the golf and quality. Casemiro just lets him do a 1-2. What are I going to do? Lindelof can't get close to him. That's a golf and quality. He's a special player. They're full of special players. Just unbelievable. Coming in at number 4. Okay, let's kind of bring it back to United a little bit here. How many of these players are good enough and should stay in the Ineos era? Like, I thought Raphael Varane was fantastic. Like, as good as he could have been, like, I do think he kind of left. Hey, I mean, there was just a mix-up. Holland shouldn't have been that open in the first half. But who stays? Like, for me, like, Varane is too old. Like, I've seen him play really poorly this season. Casemiro is arguably our biggest problem. This league and this pace of play and this whatever style you want to call that we have set up is too much for him to handle. And it's almost not fair to him. He should not be playing in the Premier League on a so-called better team, which, I mean, United aren't playing. But he's a problem. Lindelof, left back, and I know that's not his dad. Like, who stays? Højlund stays for me. Garnacho was our worst player, but there's talent there. And today should have been a reminder that he's got a lot of work to do to get to a level that we want and think he can get to. Don't get me started on Kobbie Mainoo. I just think he's our best player by a country mile. I don't know that this setup or this coach is helping him. He's got a lot to learn and is going to get better, but he's just exceptional. So outside of Højlund, Garnacho, and Mainoo, I you know what? Credit to Diego Dalot. He's played very good in the second half of the season, and I was his biggest critic. And he has just shut me right up. He's been really, really good. I think he's gone from here to here as a player this season, and really nice to watch. But Bruno Fernandes, you can tell me how much he creates, and I agree with you. He's nowhere near good enough for this team or what this team wants to be. He's not. Like, you watched him today. That game passed him by. Like, it did a lot of our players, but so this is, I'm just going to switch it in. Like, this brings me into number 5. So we're at 4. I'm just going to go to 5. The manager. Let's just get into it. So, great first season, and this is where we are now. I'm kind of not sold on him. I think he'd be getting more out of this group. But if you look at what he has to work with, but here's the thing. He brought Casemiro in. He must have sanctioned Amrabat. Like, how much time do you give him, and how ruthless are Ineos going to be about the standard of these players that we have that are nowhere near good enough? It's just a very difficult, tricky time at Manchester United right now. It's not good. It's not. Liverpool next in the cup, not going to be that much different. But it's tough. I would say 75% of this squad, 80% for me, has to go. And that's not easy in its own right. And then you need to bring in other players. I'm really disappointed at Mason Mount being injured for the majority of the season. I think with his energy, I think he would bring a lot to this team. But I mean, you're talking about, you got to bring in at least 4 to 5 players in the summer, and you can't miss on any of them. And you got to get rid of like at least 7 or 8. It's just, with Ineos here, there is zero margin for error when it comes to bringing in players, recruitment, and getting rid of players. The manager, for me, I would kind of move on from him personally. Do I understand people defending him in time, and they talk about Arteta, Klopp, and everybody? Sure. But you picked a lot of these players. You wanted Anthony. Anthony, I don't know if he'd do that well in the championship. So, I mean, today was water is wet. 3-1. I mean, good that we got a goal. I think a lot of people had a 3-0, 4-0. What happened today was what was always going to happen. A much, much better team against a not-so-great team. It's a derby game, and everyone says, but it's a derby. Even when we went up 1-0, everyone watching knew it was going to be 2-1, 3-1, maybe more. Everyone knew that. You could see. So, yeah. It's just, Arsenal help us out here. I mean, I think maybe even at this point, I'll take Liverpool for the title, just to not see 4 in a row. But they're so good. I've been Dave. I was supposed to tell you to like and subscribe earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't. Let me know what you think. Love to hear about it. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Big couple of months ahead for the manager and for a lot of these players. Let's see how it goes. We'll see you in the next one.
This is the North End. This is the North End.